Welcome to Monday in Westeros. I'm Grand Meister Todd A, and I'm joined by the Master of Whispers, Taylor Trask, and Emily Kelly Cunin, first of her name, maker of video games, mother of cats, Khaleesi of fan theories, the get-turnt ruler of her condo. It is Season 8, Episode 1. Welcome to both of you.
I can't believe we kept the whole name of mine.
It's the get turned that gets me every time. Every time.
I don't even remember why we put that. It was just really funny.
It just rhymed with the unburnt, you know?
That's right.
Yeah.
I have been known to get turned as well. So
yeah, we were just talking before we started recording, and I said, we're just jumping right in. Emily, what were your first impressions of this episode?
Oh my god. I'm a notorious, my poor husband, I'm a really notorious movie TV show talker. And so
during the episode.
During the episode. Because one, I have to share my reactions to people, and two, just an insufferable know-it-all. So I always want to make sure I know who that person is. Let me tell you the whole history of this person because you probably forgot. And my husband's I totally know who you're talking about. But so I said to my husband before it started, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and be really quiet, okay? And I actually did a really good job because I was so trying to focus on what was happening, but just from the my first impression is basically this of just from the previously on Game of Thrones, I had goosebumps, waves of goosebumps. And the show hadn't even started yet.
No,
and
that's
so,
great.
Yeah. So just I mean, it's one of those kind of with the first episode, we have to do a lot of catch up and make sure all the characters are in the same place. And you figure out the A story and the B story and the C story and whatever. And you kind of check in with everyone and figure it out. So that can be kind of boring to people. But for me, I'm it's almost going to see all your friends again, after a long time of not seeing them. Everyone starts popping up and you're yay, Gendry, yay, Jamie, yay, Danny, that. I was just super stoked to see everyone and kind of get this all rolling.
And I had the distinct impression of wow, for the first time in 8-9 years, all of these people were in one filming location.
Oh my god, I know.
Yeah.
But before we jump into that, Taylor, what were your first impressions?
This was the prototypical calm before the storm episode, as I figured it would be, and it lived up to that. But at the same time, this ended, and I think the entire group I was watching this with in our little premiere party, everybody was just wait, what? Because there's so much more story to tell, and I'm just I'm now doing that thing where I did with Lost, where I'm okay, 5 more episodes left for them to wrap this up. They better do it.
Were you anticipating a longer episode for the first episode?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be at least an hour and a half.
Yeah.
God, yes. Yeah, there are so much. So, in some ways it was a return to form because, it feels like a classic episode. It didn't have the sprawling movie sort of grandeur that I kind of thought this one would have. And maybe we're going to get to that. I don't know.
Well, it also, for me, didn't suffer, and not suffer is a bad word to use to describe this, but there's some mid-season episodes of different seasons where it doesn't feel like there's a start or an ending to the episode. It's just kind of it's the link between two episodes. And this one I felt had, it had all this, for me, it had not exactly a cliffhanger, but it had this exciting ending and it had this, great start. And I don't know, it just felt really good. But we should definitely talk about the first thing we saw after the last season on Game of Thrones, which was that new introduction, which totally caught me off guard.
Yay. That's my favorite part, because now that I've caught on the last 4 seasons or something, that they change it depending on what has happened. I was waiting for it. I'm oh my god, okay, what's it gonna look like? And I think for me, most of it seemed normal. It definitely, there was a lot less places that they showed than they normally do. It was only 4 places or something. But the thing that really, and I mean, we'll probably talk about it later too, because it's one of the most horrifying things that's ever happened in Game of Thrones. But when it showed the map and it showed the wall falling down, and then it showed Last Hearth, and I was oh shit! And then that first part where we see little Lord Umber lean out and he goes, "I'm gonna go get my people at Last Hearth," or whatever. And then I'm nope, you're dead. They're all dead, buddy. I saw it fall in the credits. Everyone's dead, bud. I'm sad for you.
Yeah,
buddy.
we saw it in the intro, man.
I was
Not good.
This is not good.
We are the three-eyed raven. We know the secrets that are undiscovered. I love this opening because it two things were very, very different. One, we actually went inside the building, inside the Winterfell crypt and inside the King's Landing. Like that was just super cool to see because there's only so few places left to focus on. They can actually go in and show it off a little bit and be like, look at all the money we spent. The other thing that really caught me off guard was in the what is the official title of that cool compass thingy that spins around that is sort of the center of everything. There's a name for it. I forget what they
mean
call
on
it.
A map, a compass.
No,
road?
in the
like
the
that
opening.
Flaming golden crowny thingy.
It's like the globe thing. It's like almost like it's like a weird cylindrical compass looking thing that it's when the intro starts, the sigils of all the families are on it. It's like spinning around, and then it's kind of like the sun that the game board revolves around.
Oh, gotcha.
There's a name for it though. There's like a really cool nerdy name for it. But anyway, on this particular one, there are it's almost completely barren. There's like three little things, but there's no ornamentation on it or anything. Like it took me a little off guard. I was like, wait a second, are we just down to three families left or three sigils? Like it was very strange.
I haven't picked up on that the last couple seasons. Damn.
I don't know if they've been taking them off as they go, but this one looked very, very barren. Like something about it looked very different. Like the sun itself wasn't as flaming as it normally is. So they really leaned into the theatrics of this opening to paint the picture.
So it's called an astrolabe.
There you go.
Whoa.
Astrolabe. And it's the circles that go around the sun. That's what also the rings around the sun are called. Astrolabe.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like that was you should just drop the mic and we should end the podcast right now.
To be fair, I Googled
there is
it.
no more.
I Googled it. Let's not give me too much credit, but
I Googled it too, but I did not come up with that.
I'm a very proficient Googler.
I thought we would kind of combine what we've done the last couple seasons, which is take it geographically, but just because I wanted to circle back to that ending, we'll do Winterfell, then we'll go south, then we'll come back to Winterfell. So don't worry, we'll get there even when I redirect this. But the first thing we see, so what struck me about that intro and then the first scene was, I felt like our point of view I felt like the point of view of the intro was being mimicked in the camera work of showing the army marching in and stuff like that. And I that must have been intentional in some way. And Taylor couldn't help but think about your comments on the director of this episode and trying to set up in my mind, this is going to be the more, epic kind of dramatic episode than a battle. Was there anything that struck you about that first thing where all the armies are marching in? There's one big significant thing that stuck out to me. I'm wondering if either of you would mention it.
There's a wonderful symmetry in this episode and the very first episode of season 1 where it's got the Starks gathering, Arya's looking out, and she sees at that point Robert Baratheon and his court marching into Winterfell, much, much smaller, obviously. But just that same thing. So now we've got a similar kind of look and feel of, Arya's looking out, the townspeople, which we get to see their little Hogsmeade area again of Winterfell. It's like, oh, here, that's still there. Okay, that's good to know. And everybody's looking, only this time it's 1,000 I mean, just when that shot looked long and you just saw all these CGI unsullied, just miles and miles and miles of them. I was like, oh my God. That really sets up both the scope of what's to come, but also how the hell are they going to feed all these guys? Like they're so, they've been harping on that for quite a while. So that was just that visual impact of how are they going to do this was interesting.
Yeah. Emily, anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really put it together because it's been 8 years since we've watched the first episode of Game of Thrones. But then I watched the inside Game of Thrones and I was like, oh yeah, of course. It's when the Robert Baratheon first comes.
Yeah.
But I also really liked that, maybe they just weren't paying a lot of attention, but it kind of showed how much Arya has changed and Arya has grown to kind of, that she blended in with the crowd and that Jon, even though he kind of was, staring straight ahead and the Hound and Gendry and whoever, that they didn't notice her in the crowd. Maybe they weren't looking directly at her, but I kind of and especially later when she sneaks up on John and he's like, how'd you sneak up on me? And it's like, for me, I was like, oh man, she's like a real assassin spy chick now, like where she just kind of melted into the crowd and got to watch her brother come home and he had no idea that she was there. Like, I thought that was really dope.
Well, both of those things are, you both picked up on stuff I wasn't even thinking about, but that symmetry with the first season, of course, is it Lord Umber that's the one running up the tree like Bran did in that first episode? Or
no, I think it was just like a random peasant child.
Okay. Yeah. I of course flashed to the books where at least the last couple of books, Martin has a whole chapter about some character that you're never going to see again that opens the book and you're like, what is going on? And I was like, oh no, another new guy. Like I got to follow this guy. But the thing I thought was so interesting was that there was like there was a melding of cultures. That was a lot of brown faces that marched into the north, and I don't think I just hadn't really seen that stark contrast before. Well,
Missandei sold it too, right? She was like,
she's like, they're looking at us really meanly.
There's a cut back to the villagers' faces where you really realize like, oh, it's a bunch of old white people here, you know. And then there right after that is that line about like they don't like outsiders, and I was like, oh boy. We got another show on our hands. I guess this is the setup to that Civil War tale that Benioff and Weiss are doing.
Confederate or whatever.
And I had that note about Arya's face too. I thought she was such a great proxy for us as the audience.
Yes.
Certainly because her eyebrows do like 80% of the work.
It's so true.
It was really refreshing to see this all through her eyes, because it was the first time I feel like she could kind of just sit back and enjoy. She got to see her brother, she got to see Gendry, even the Hound to some degree, like all her past is coming back, and she gets to see dragons for the first time. She hadn't seen them before, and she's like, and just the look of like, oh my god, like,
almost giddiness and awe, just like, what?
She was the little girl again. I mean, she was home, her family's coming home, and this is like, it kind of reinforces that calm before the storm sort of idea of like, hey, this might be the last time she gets to just enjoy herself before anything. I mean, ever again, maybe. I don't know.
It also felt like the first time she got to be out in public since the first season.
Yeah.
Because,
just kind of like be herself too.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. She's, she was always sneaking around for 7 years or whatever, 8 years. Then another moment I think is worth noting there is when the formalities begin once they're inside Winterfell and Bran is just having none of it.
So hard.
Interrupt.
Oh my god.
He's the newly
excuse you. Yeah.
It was the perfect payoff for his like flat delivery the past few years of like, that's exactly what we need. Now we need you to just sort of like push us along.
We're all gonna die tomorrow.
Yeah, so like, hey guys, please stop hugging in Sansa. Please stop doing dagger eyes at Dany. Okay, we need to get a move on, please.
Yeah. So great lead in. What do we make of?
I want to mention, I had completely forgotten that Jon had not seen Bran in however long. When they hugged, and I was like, oh my god, he has not seen him since he went to the wall. Like
I cried a little bit. I cried a little bit because it was just like his face of seeing him, like he couldn't believe that he was alive and that he was there. Like it was so beautiful. Like, it was beautifully acted.
I thought that Jon had seen him before he went to go appeal to Dany, and that Bran showed up after that, after he left. So I had to remind myself of where everybody was. But yeah, what a cool moment.
Yeah, so I love seeing all the Stark reunions. I mean, not just this season, but in the past season when Sansa and Arya and Bran all regroup. So yeah, that was a great moment. But Sansa's Tood, what do we make of this? How do we feel about it?
Tood. I think a lot of people will think it's like a woman thing, like a rivalry thing. But I think honestly, it's just Sansa has had to fight for so long, all these years, to defend her home, to defend herself, to defend her right to Winterfell, all these things. Like she doesn't really want someone else coming in and like she's like, things are good now. Like I help run Winterfell and people respect me and they listen to me. And I don't really want some foreign lady coming in with my bro and like telling me what to do. Like, I don't think it has to do with jealousy or rivalry. I think it's just more like Sansa's like, cool, I just got things under control, and now there's all these tens of thousands of freaking dudes here with you. I don't even know you. Like, it's more like she is cautiously, you know, appraising her and appraising us. Like, Sansa is a very practical person, has become a very practical ruler in the last season. And I think that's what she sees more of, that she just sees a bunch of mouths to feed and someone who thinks that they have a right to something they might not even have a right to anymore.
I wrote in my notes, Sansa is like the Dick Cheney of this administration. Yeah. Like she's kind of like assumed all this power while the quote unquote real president or king is away. And she's just kind of like, you're screwing it with my, like, you're messing everything up. Everything was fine. She has this kind of surly attitude. Like, what are you doing here? Like, this is my job.
And I think too, it has a little bit to do with maybe like, you know, I don't have a brother, but like, you know, when my younger sister brought boys home for the first time, I'd be like, oh yeah, hey, whatever. Like, who are you? What are you doing here? Like it's kind of like a little bit like she wants to protect Jon. Like they just got all their family back, and she doesn't want anything to happen to any of them, like to pull them away.
I did feel like it wasn't. I mean, not that she was like looking for a title when in the last season with Littlefinger, but he was definitely putting that in her head of like, you know, why should Jon be the Lord of Winterfell? But I did feel that for the like, and I guess I enjoyed this actually, even though Daenerys frustrates me. I did enjoy seeing that there's like definitely a different philosophy about rulers in the North, you know. And that, I didn't take it as like a woman to woman rivalry. I took it as more of like that, you know, we have different philosophies of how this needs to be led. But your point about I just got the shit under control. Perfect.
This bitch coming in trying to wreck everything with her 10,000s of people who all probably eat a lot. Like, what is happening?
Yes. And so, I mean, that's a perfect segue into that council meeting, which is the next thing we see. Little Lord Umber signs his own death warrant.
R.A.P. bud.
Go back and tell your people.
Sad.
But then we do have that conflict with Lady Mormont, who is just as salty as ever.
God, remember, like, so last season, like my whole thing, last season, the season before, were just like ladies doing it for themselves, and she's just like. She's in this room full of, she's like 12 or 11 or something. She's in this room full of grown men who are older and more experienced than her. And she just straight up stands up and calls out Jon Snow like a boss. Like, I was like, so like, like, and one of my other favorite parts of the whole thing was when Tyrion gets up and he says, and the Lannister army will be here. And then they cut to her and Lord Royce, and her face is just like that perfect of like, bitch, you said what kind of face? Like, excuse me. Just like lividness on that tiny little child face. So good.
Asterisks on that. I'm so glad you said Royce, because that was one of the names that I could not come up with when I was watching it.
Yeah.
And when we talked right before we started recording, when you said you were going to have trouble with names, I was like, oh boy, I hope she remembers what did I call him? Sir Bad Haircut's name. That was what I was calling him during the episode. I was like, I know it's something else.
Lord Royce, Protector of the Veil, or whatever.
Lord Royce always has a permanent scowl. So like, you know, when he's actually angry about something or actually disgruntled, it's kind of fun to watch watch what he does.
Yeah, we sat them next to each other was like my favorite. Yeah. It was just like both sour grapes face and like the Lannister army better not come here.
Well, and they kind of both she and Lady Mormont are kind of like avatars for those of us in the audience that are like, wait a second, you said in this episode before that you were like, they're like holding the writers to account like through these characters. Like, wait, you said, are we still doing this or not? Like, no, you're right. Let's stay on track here. They're like script supervisors. Yeah, you know, like little. On the show,
little tiny script supervisor.
Yeah,
I mean, do we think that you know, the resistance from them is that? Do they recognize the danger that's headed their way, and they're trying to protect the North? Like, are we seeing them being protective, or are we seeing them being defensive against Lannisters or something? I guess.
I don't think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Emily.
Oh my God, such a gentleman. I think it's like, it's funny. So as an Irish person, we kind of have like this almost instinctual fear of like British people. Like, because the last time we trusted British people, they took our whole country and basically enslaved us for like hundreds of years. And so that, I think that's kind of what it is, a little bit like this like conscious like ancestral memory of the North of like, the last time the North wasn't ruled by itself, a Targaryen came in on a dragon and took it from us. And so it's kind of like, I don't think it has to do so much with the Lannisters, even though they obviously, there's some really bad blood. I think it's more that it's Dany and it's like, you know, we've kind of learned not to trust Targaryens to keep their word that we're going to be self-governing, and like we were doing an okay job governing ourselves for a little while. We kind of don't want to give that up.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think the dream from season 2 on wasn't so much that Robb would be king; it was that the North would be its own kingdom. That's you saying that kind of brings all those memories to the surface. Taylor, you were going to say something about that.
I still don't think that any of them truly comprehend what's coming.
Gotcha.
You know, it's interesting that they had to drag the white or the zombie, you know, the crazy zombie thing in the box all the way to Cersei to convince her. Yet they haven't done. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Lyanna or any of the lords of the North have actually physically seen with their own eyes, like exactly how treacherous this is. So I almost wonder if there isn't, you know, in addition to what Emily said, because I love that metaphor of the Irish and the sort of the history.
Like, not that I like hate all British people. I'm just saying, like, you get a little nervous.
That's so true. Like that gets, I mean, especially with a culture that's, you know, a lot of it's based on, you know, they love their scrolls and they love their verbal, you know, the verbal oral tradition and all that stuff. So that just gets passed down in songs and plays and stories and all these things. But then, and on top of that, this idea that they only know about what's coming through Jon's own word. And yeah, they've trusted that, but they don't have that visceral, like, oh shit, like they're going to hang up a little boy in like a spiral of dead arms. And like, they don't know that that's what's heading their way. So I think if they did, because Jon later in the episode, Jon sells it. He's like, he's telling Sansa, he's like, hey, none of this matters.
Yeah.
The titles and all that stuff does not matter. Like, we need as many people helping as possible. Do you not understand? I don't think the Lords of the North quite get it yet, to their own detriment, probably.
Yeah. And I think that was probably like the most significant line in the whole episode of like, whoever sits on the Iron Throne, whoever is called the king or queen or lord or whatever of the North, it doesn't matter if they come here and all kill us.
Yeah.
Like if we're fighting each other, we're fighting Cersei or we're fighting whoever, we're you know, playing you know, political games, they will murder us all and there will be no more people anymore. So I think I'm glad that it's kind of like funny, like that Jon is like the voice of reason. Like it's almost like at this point, like whining, like, you guys, they're gonna kill us. Like I'm really serious, you guys. Like we have to band together. Like everyone's like, well, but I don't want to sit at the table with that guy because.
And if you don't believe me, follow little Lord Umber up to his death at Lastparth. We've just sent him there to get brutally murdered.
So horrifying.
So there's a great, several great moments between Sansa and Tyrion. Which I freaking loved the introduction to, where he says, well, we haven't spoken since Joffrey's wedding. It was a miserable affair.
And she goes, oh, it had its moments. And everyone's like, oh.
Oh my God. I had to rewind it to make sure that's what she was talking about.
Oh my God.
Like,
her little smile too. Of just like, I'm talking about because he died. Like,
it is cool though to see, by the way, like, I mean, we saw it last season or, you know, the season 7, but it's cool to see Sansa like fully formed in her element, completely, you know, she is not the scared little girl anymore. She has out Littlefinger. Like that was kind of her final move to become this, you know, strong, powerful woman. And I'm seeing more and more of Catelyn in her every time she's on screen. And I wonder if that's an intentional choice by Sophie Turner, or if that just, you know, if that's just what happens to the daughter. Like she just becomes, you know, eventually becomes as strong as the mother. So it's really cool to see that. In that Tyrion Sansa scene though, it disappointed me a little bit that Tyrion still has this weird, irrational belief that his sister will do the right thing. And Sansa calls him out on it, and he's like, "What? I don't know. Maybe." She's like, "You were the cleverest man I ever met until now, you dummy." And I don't. Where do you think that's coming from? Why do you think Tyrion still? I mean, yeah, he was down there. He saw her reaction, but he knows Cersei better than any of these people. Why would he still think she would do the right thing?
I think what he was saying to her was she has a reason now, meaning her fake pregnancy.
Yeah. Or her real pregnancy. We haven't really even it could be real.
Does Tyrion know she's pregnant? Does
yes. He does. Okay. Yeah.
That's right. They had that scene in the hands meeting hall or whatever the hell you call it. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I think too, like with family, like even though she's been mean to him his whole life and she basically hates him and he killed the dad, I think you still want to believe the best about your family. And I think deep down, he's only got 2 people in his whole family left. And if he doesn't know where his brother is, he knows where Cersei is. And even though they hate each other, it's like he doesn't want her to die. He doesn't want her to suffer this horrifying death against the White Walkers. Like, I think some little part of him, like, I think that's what's so beautiful about Tyrion is like, he, as much as like he grumbles and like has a lot of pessimism, I think he's like the eternal optimist, especially when it comes to his like weird, horrible family. Mm-hmm. Like he really wants to believe that she will do the right thing, even though she will probably always let him down. And I think that's a very common thing in families.
Honestly. I'm reminded of a line that Tywin gave several seasons ago. That was really, it stuck with me then, and I'm sure it sticks with Cersei now too. But he looks right at Cersei when he's Hand of the King. He goes, "The problem with you is that you're not as clever as you think you are." Mm-hmm. Like, because Tyrion actually is clever for the most part, and he knows it, but he tries to be humble about it. Cersei absolutely thinks she is the smartest the smartest tool in the shed, and she's almost blinded by her own arrogance on that fact. And Tywin was like the one guy who could call her bullshit for what it is, and she was constantly, not scared of that, but sort of operating under that shadow. So once Tywin died, it's almost like she's been unshackled to just run roughshod over everybody's plans and to hell with anything.
Yeah, wow, this is just giving me a lot to think about. But I what I'm picking up on between what you're both saying is that there's a great continuity between that last scene, the scene with Cersei and Tyrion. Mm-hmm. And I love that you're connecting it to that longer thread of how Tywin spoke to his own children about stuff. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I thought Sansa in that moment was showing that she had truly, I mean, granted, she always hated Cersei, but she had also picked up the Littlefinger rule of like, assume the worst about everyone.
Yeah. It's probably true.
I should have brought this up when we briefly talked Stark reunions. I had separated out, of course, in my outline about the Jon and Arya reunion. I don't know that there's anything we need to add there. They play a short game of that ain't a knife. And then they, and then I had one question. I had one question for Emily, which I may have gotten wrong on our preview podcast, Taylor. In the books, isn't Needle made of Valyrian steel?
I was trying to think about that too. And because I went through when I was talking after the episode, I was talking to my husband about where all the swords are and like who has them and stuff. And I cannot remember, but I know that the dagger that she has now of Littlefinger's is Valyrian steel, but I don't think Needle is.
And because Jon remarked on that, I'm thinking like that was their way of saying Needle is not.
Yeah,
at least in the show.
I'm pretty sure it's not, because I'm pretty sure they just made it at Winterfell. Like he just made it.
I'm looking right now. It is saying it is good steel, but not Valyrian steel.
Okay. And we'll I'll get to that later. Let's jump to King's Landing. The Army of the Dead. Qyburn gives the Army of the Dead update to Cersei.
She's like, excellent, like Mr. Burns, like excellent.
Yes. I did what I loved. I mean, I'm sure honestly, there were so many great directions in this episode, and where the camera moves around behind her to catch her turning, and that's the reveal of the Iron Fleet coming back into the harbor. What a good moment. So we get a Euron and Cersei reunion. Maybe I'm jumping ahead, actually, where I'm proven wrong again, Taylor, from a comment I made in the preview episode, which is Euron has Yara.
I noted that too. I'm like, ooh, we screwed that up. I had forgotten that she was still on the ship.
Yeah, I did. So once Euron and Cersei are, have their scene in the throne room, did that move a little quickly at that moment? I mean, I know we only have 6 episodes, but I their little footsie game was
they've been playing for a while though. No, but remember, go back to like some of those previous episodes and like last season or before where you're on. He's made this exact move at least twice now. And finally, she's like, all right. And so I noted Euron is like the college guy who shows up late to a high school party and then is more obnoxious than any of the high schoolers and then ends up like, having sex with like the one popular high school girl because she's just so passed out. That's Euron. It's like, nobody invited you here. You aren't welcome here. Why are you here at all? Yet he's just going to make the most of it. So he's just he's that character that just kind of showed up last minute and is just as obnoxious as hell. And the fact that Cersei likes it, just oh God.
So I just was like her bucket list, like one of the lists, like fuck a pirate, check. Like she's like, meh, might as well, whatever. Like,
well, is part of it the ongoing ruse of the pregnancy? If it is a ruse, like that's another thing that he makes that statement of like, I'm going to put a prince in your belly,
which by the way is super weird.
Yeah,
that's what Peter goes. My husband was like, it's not that weird, and I'm like, okay, but like this is the first time they've ever had sex, and he's like, I'm going to put a prince in your womb. Like what? Okay, bro. Like settle down there, buddy. But I think for the most part, I think it was more of a strategic choice. If she knew, if she kept stringing him along, if she kept saying after the war, he could turn around and sail away, and she would have basically nothing. So I think for the most part, maybe it was a little bit the pregnancy, but I think a lot of it had to do with strategically. She's like, I know that I need him, and it's like if that's the way you have to keep him. It's not the worst thing in the world. He's not terrible looking.
Let me throw another element on, or another log on this fire. He reminds her, by the way, I think before and then definitely after they do the deed, he reminds her of her past loves. He's like, Robert and then Jamie. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if she just isn't lonely. She sent Jamie away. And in such a way that she probably doesn't think he's coming back. So she's like, okay, I'm pregnant. Jamie's gone. It's having Euron around serves this idea of, well, who's the daddy? It could be Euron. So that works. But also all her kids are dead. Her brothers have abandoned her. Her love of her life has abandoned her, which is Jamie too. So it's, it stands to reason that she's got this guy who's horny for her. And it's like, all right.
Yeah. She also incinerated the other love of her life, Lancel.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
I know. And I think too, there's like a little bit of like, I don't know if she's ever really gotten to choose for herself, like what she, I think in a sense she chose to be with Jamie, but I think for her, in her mind, it was always inevitable that they are twins. They are meant to be together, that there was no stopping that. And then of course, Robert was picked for her. And in the books, especially, she talks a lot about, how Rhaegar Targaryen was supposed to be hers. She was obsessed with Rhaegar Targaryen, that he was handsome, he was smart, he was this mysterious person. She was like in love with him since she was a child, and her dad kept telling her, that is who you're going to marry. You are going to be the queen of Westeros. And I think she's like, it kind of broke her a little bit of the man that she quote unquote chose to be with for the rest of her life. She didn't end up with. And then the second man now has betrayed her. The man that got chosen for her was a pig, and she hated him. And whatever, Lancel, we won't talk about him because that was a whole weird thing. But now it's kind of like, she's like, I can do what I want now. And if I want to have sex with this guy, I'm going to do it. Like, nobody can stop me.
You hit on something so interesting in that, which is because I think in the books, it's pretty explicit that she's a teen or preteen when she's in love with Rhaegar.
Yeah, she's like 12 years old or something. And he's quite a bit older than her. He would be like in his 20s.
Yeah, and when you said that, it like recast the whole show in my mind of like, oh my God, this is a psychopath living out her stupid prince and princess fantasy from her pubescent years,
and it's super interesting too, because we, especially in the books and in the show, we really focused on Robert's love of Lyanna, and if he started a whole war to go get her, and we never really, I think that was kind of what broke her a little bit. Of nobody ever asked Cersei if she wanted revenge for that Robert killed Rhaegar, and then she had to marry him.
That's true.
Wow. Nobody ever apologized to her for that. Nobody ever asked for her opinion about that. Her dad especially is the worst. And I think it really plays a lot to her character, especially now. Of like, now she's finally in charge of her own life and her own destiny, and she's like holding on to that for dear life.
By the way, quick aside, that also explains why she was so shitty to Sansa. Sansa was very much that same little princess, like, oh, Joffrey's the love of my life. I go back to season 1, or in the books, I'm sure it's fairly similar. Like, oh, Joffrey, I'm gonna be a princess. And I almost wonder if like Cersei wasn't looking at her like, oh, you have no idea. I'm gonna purposely show you how wrong you are.
Yeah.
And it's in the same way, Sansa, I mean, as horrible as all those experiences were, she's as badass now as Cersei is in terms of being, completely in control of her own destiny. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. There's some interesting mirroring there too.
You saying that also explains a bit of Sansa's frustration just in that phrase of like Daenerys showing up with Jon has shifted the balance where Sansa is again like not in control of her own destiny. Mm-hmm. And I can see how it's like both a personal problem for her and I want to protect my people, like protective instinct. So so there's one more great thing that happens in King's Landing, which is Qyburn interrupts Bronn in a brothel.
By the way, can I just say this is total fan service. This is what everybody had hoped Bronn's time off would be like. Yeah. Like, I mean, it was so classically cliche, but I'm so glad they did this because like this is.
It's a mirror image of episode 1, season 1. It's like that was Tyrion.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Oh. He's with one prostitute and Jaime comes in and has hired all of them. And it's like, in the North. So Qyburn makes this offer to Bronn. Is it to kill both brothers?
Yeah, it's to kill them both.
Is the contract? Okay, so the contract is not fulfilled if he only kills one of them.
Correct.
Why did she think that he would kill either of them?
Because he likes money.
Yeah, does he still? I mean, it definitely feels like he's learned it's not all it's cracked up.
And I was actually I was like prepping for this to do the recording talking with Peter, but Bronn is like such a funny character to me. I really like him a lot, but mostly because he's like kind of the comic relief. But I think throughout all the times that we've seen him, starting when he saves Tyrion from the moon door or whatever, that he has always done stuff because it benefited him or because he thought it was going to benefit him. So it's like he knew this is Tyrion Lannister. His dad will pay me a ton of money if I return him to him. I'll fight in the Blackwater, so I'll be, a hero. I'll be made a lord. I'll team up with Jaime and he'll give me a castle and a wife and blah, blah, blah. And I think there's going to come a time where Bronn is going to, because he became friends with Tyrion, he became friends with Jaime, and when faced with an army of the dead, what's more important? Him surviving to spend another coin another day, or killing two dudes who are his friends? I think that's when it's going to come down to. His very core, he's a self-preservationist. If he's always looking out for number one, and in this part when you're faced with White Walkers, I think he's going to try to save himself and be on the side of the people who are fighting for life and not caring about shooting two brothers.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Can I ask a point of order? Did Bronn have his castle and wife taken from him?
Yeah.
When did that happen? How did that? Did I just miss that or forget that, or was that explained at any point in time?
Well, he was given the castle. There's a brief moment where Jaime says something about we're giving that castle to someone else, right, Emily?
Is that when Bronn's wearing like the Lord outfit and everything, and he's all like refined and sophisticated? And
because it was like Cersei needed allies, like from the whatever the middle range of the king. I don't remember where the
Reach.
The Reach, yes, the flower people. See, this is what I said about the names that I don't remember. People say, we're yes, the flower people. So I think she needed like that to give that to someone else so that they would be like her allies or whatever. So but she like made Jaime like go deliver the bad news, and he's like, dude, are you kidding me, man?
Well, I don't know what to make of this either, other than it's either just a funny remark or it is a little bit of foreshadowing, which is when the crossbow is presented and he says, that fucking family.
I know. Well, that's the crossbow that killed Tywin Lannister.
And I was wondering, is that the same crossbow that Joffrey used to kill Raz?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, that's
it's
what I'm.
Fucking family. That
Yeah.
makes so much sense.
But
like they're weird and crazy.
To me, I guess the presentation of that, I thought, yeah, he's saying that like it is comic relief for us as an audience, but I thought it sort of betrayed this thing of like, now you've crossed the line.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like,
Yeah,
like he was like, now, oh my God, I'm not going to go murder your brothers with the weapon that one of your brothers used to murder your father. That's crazy. So that's great. I mean, I like that there's a question mark there, I guess. Anyway, so back in the Iron Fleet, which is presumably parked in the harbor of King's Landing, Theon has no trouble boarding Euron's ship, killing everyone aboard, rescuing Yara, and then sailing off in 3 huge ships, which seemed specious to me.
It seems like, oh, well, this is great, but how in the world?
See, I was blinded by my eternal love for the Yara Theon relationship. Every time they're on screen and like one of them helps the other one, or one of them does something triumphant with the other one, I'm always like, oh, like, so I completely throw logic out the window. Their relationship is probably my favorite sibling relationship in this entire show, and that's saying a lot considering all the previous stuff. I don't know why. Those two trying to eke out an existence on the through this weird effed up upbringing that they had. It's something about it just really sits with me.
Quick book flashback. Emily, the Queen's Moot is still going on at the end of book 5, right?
Yeah. Wait, I don't remember. I'm trying to remember. I think it's either like just wrapped up or like just ended or like getting towards the end, because I kind of feel like I'm trying to remember now. I'm so mixed up because of the show too. Of like, did that really happen in the book or did that just happen in the show? And I'm like blanking completely. But yeah, it's like I think it is kind of left ambiguous of like, and because even if I think you know what, now that I'm remembering it correctly, I think the King's Moot, whatever, has been decided and that Euron is selected king, but he goes off to do a completely other different thing. Like he goes off to find Daenerys.
Right.
Like he's going to spend the next year sailing across the whole globe to try to find Daenerys. Like this, so his story is completely different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, what do you make of Yara presents this idea that Daenerys she's basically like, hey, the Iron Islands are unoccupied right now by an army. We could easily take it, and Daenerys will need a place to retreat to where the dead can't get to her. What do you make of that? Like, I took that as Yara's intention. Like, that's what she's doing.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of interesting, like the way, maybe it's just the way that she said it, but it felt so sad to me. You know, like she's saying that basically her home, this place that she loves, will be the last resort of humanity in Westeros. Like that's kind of like, that's like a heavy burden to bear. Of like realizing like, yeah, I'm gonna take back my home that I fought so hard for and bled for and people have died for, and it could very well be the last place that people will ever exist in Westeros. Like that's so, I was like, like kind of took my breath away. And it's such a simple little scene, but just for me, I was like, oh my God, like realizing that, like, oh my God, like that's so crazy. And then I was like quiet for a moment. I turned to Peter. I was like, but like, what if they can swim? What if those zombies can swim?
It's a flip though. It's a flip from her father, because he was, pretty damn confident. Early on, when her father was still alive, he was always the one going, oh, we live on the Iron Islands. Nobody can get to us. Our isolation is our strength, blah, blah, blah. And now it's this, like you said, Emily, it's this sad sort of fact of this may be the last refuge for this whole place. So that's what a weird twist. Like she'll be queen of the Iron Islands, but that whole, what's the iron price, to be that is still hanging over her head.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I wondered about that scene is, so immediately after that, she mentions, she's the one who says the word Winterfell to Theon. And I wondered if that signified in any way, or at least put the idea in our heads, like, does that mean Yara is still trying to choose between those two things, like go fight with Daenerys or go back to her home?
No, I think she's probably going to go home. I think it's kind of like, if she's on the ship, I think her mind is kind of made up. But she's like letting Theon like make his choice, but like with no judgment. Like if you want to go and fight with the people you grew up with and defend the home that was more your home than our home, then she wants him to do that. I just love too that. Well, first I love their sea capes. I don't know what that is about, but I just love them. Like it's because it's like a real short, like little, almost like sailors' uniforms, like type short cape, and then like the thing and I love them. I love every time I see her wearing. I'm like, yes, sea cape. But I also love that their slogan is "What is dead will never die." Like it's so prevalent now, and I always love like the super like you know. We focused a lot on the Starks, the Targaryens, the Lannisters, the Baratheons in the show, the kind of major houses. But the Greyjoys have been here just as long, and it's kind of interesting to think like that where maybe their saying comes from. Like there's a lot of death that surrounds their traditions and stuff, but it is interesting now that a literal army of the dead is walking on Westeros. That what is dead can never die. It's really, I was like, oh, it gives me chills. Like,
but I'm going to kill him anyway.
Like I'm going to do it anyway. Like, I'm going to murder a bunch of people who can't be murdered.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of it. We talked about Theon in our preview and I personally just don't care about his story anymore.
Oh, yeah. Todd, he's going to have a triumphant moment and you're going to sob a tear for Theon.
Yeah. We had a moment. I was like, is he dead? Is he alive? Where is he? I don't know what he's doing. Well, he showed up and we're like, oh, there he is.
I'm also like afflicted by that terrible practicality of a book reader where I've stared at that map so long, and I know that what this means is they left King's Landing and they're sailing around the west coast of Westeros to the Iron Islands, and Winterfell is on the east coast. So there's no way to get there. I mean, except across land.
Yeah.
Because I mean, surely Yara's not going to. I guess that's where my other question is: is Yara going to sail those 3 ships up to Winterfell, and then she gets coerced into being part of this battle, or are we going to see Theon riding a single horse across the entire country to get to Winterfell, which he'll arrive too late for because we know the Army of the Dead is now between Last Hearth and Winterfell. Anyway, back to the north. Daenerys learns that her dragons are not eating very much. And she takes Jon out to see them as they're picking at these bones. And I honestly thought they were going to go get some food.
Like a date? Like, hey, if you want to ride my dragon, we'll just go like get McDonald's really quick.
It kind of was.
Yeah, but they led the dragons even farther north, apparently.
I think they just like wanted to fly. I mean, I think the real purpose, like they said this in the inside the episode or whatever too, of like having a moment where you're kind of, you know, re-upping their relationship. Like it's not like they didn't just like have sex on the ship and now they're like, oh, we're just allies. Like that like making sure we remember like, no, they are a couple now. They like each other. They're in love with each other. And also that she's the only one that's ever rode a dragon in like hundreds of years, thousands of years. Like, and now Jon is too. And like, that's so cool. Like, that's so dope.
Yeah. I did a double take though, when he said, I've never ridden a dragon. And I was like, yeah, how'd you get off that island in the north? But he did not get to ride the dragon. Everyone else, the Magnificent Six rode it. And he had to take Benjen's dead horse.
Stag thing.
Yeah.
That's right. Did we get a little callback to a Yara line when she's like, we could stay 1,000 years in there? Is that something Yara said back when they went into their cave? I swear.
Not Yara.
Ygritte. Sorry. Yeah.
Y names. Maybe.
Yeah,
it was like, oh, really? What is it with you and Jon? What is it, Jon in caves? You know? Like, freezing cold caves. Like, what is that? That says romance to him.
Then we get the most awkward line in Game of Thrones history. So come and keep your queen warm. I'm just like, oh God, 1,000 groans were unleashed across this nation of ours.
I was just excited that they were smooching.
Oh, yeah.
I like the idea because when he got on the dragon and, you know, there was a funny sort of scene, you know, like brief moment of him like awkwardly climbing on the dragon. And I was thinking of that whole thing of like, well, the dragon, you know, probably can tell this is a Targaryen that's trying to get on my back, blah, blah, blah. And then to have that smooch happen and it cuts to the dragon's face.
Oh my God. Yeah. Drago's face of just like, it's like almost like, so my sister had this Chihuahua when we were growing up and he was like the sweetest boy dog. But every time my sister would get a new boyfriend, that dog would like sleep in the middle of them, bark at him. It's almost like I am good. Like Drago was like okay, I'm gonna allow this to happen, but you better know if you fuck up, then I'm gonna come roast you. That's my mom, and I love my mom. Like, it was kind of cute. It was like almost like a dog, like saying like, okay, I'm gonna allow this because my mom likes you, but also I'm watching you, bro.
I like that.
It was so fun.
You took away the cute reaction, and what I saw was that dragon was like, "That's your aunt, dude."
Yeah.
Guys,
Yeah.
can't you smell that you have the same blood? Like, that's what I did. So
it's been worse, man. They married their sisters and stuff like before.
Yeah,
I
I guess.
Yeah.
What about the dragon flight itself? Like,
CGI so fun.
wise, okay.
It was great. I'm like a huge my favorite movie when I was growing up was Star Wars, and seriously I wanted to be a fighter pilot when growing up. So watching Captain Marvel was like the best thing ever in my whole life. On the side, but so even like just watching it, I was like making noises like woohoo, like woo, that's so exciting. Like it was really cool. I liked it a lot. I like that there was like a playfulness to it.
I am waiting for the memes to show up where that's those scenes with the never ending story theme music behind them. The Falcon riding theme song.
I was thinking of it's the like when they're gonna put Star Wars blasters coming out.
Oh
like,
yeah.
So we also have in Gendry's smithy or foundry or whatever it is, Gendry is making a weapon for the Hound, a giant axe, and we get the reunion of Gendry the Hound and Arya. Well, I thought the Arya Hound thing was I don't know. I'll open it up to you two.
How else could that have gone though? Honestly, like that's I saw it like, I mean, and it was almost, part of me almost kind of saw the Hound was kind of like happy to see her. It just, it had sort of this like look of, oh, hey, you left me for dead, but he respects strength in other people. It seems like he respects the survival instinct in a lot of people. And I think Arya has mastered both of those clearly. So them seeing each other, and it's not like they were the best of buddies. It was always a sort of love-hate relationship anyway, at the most. So for him to see her again in these conditions, I'm sure, honestly, he's probably happy to see her because he's like one more good soldier for this fight to come. She's a survivor. Good. We need more of you because he knows what's coming. He's seen it.
Yeah. And I think too, like you said, like game, respect game. Like he's like, you were like, it wasn't her who tried to hurt him. That was Brienne. I'm sure when he sees Brienne too, like he'll be like, hey, you bested me and that's great for you. But I think too with Arya, I think he had to respect that she was a little girl. She was a girl then, and she left him to die and robbed him, as she said. Like, I think he kind of has to respect that of like, wow, you got the best of me and you're still here, which means that there's something, something strong about you. And I like you said, Taylor, he's like, oh, good, another one for the fight. Like, this is a good addition to our team.
He does go. I mean, everybody who has physically seen the White Walkers with their own eyes or has experienced their fury seems to all be of the same mind of like, oh, except for Cersei. It's like, oh, who cares about the past? Who cares about all that? This is all that matters. And the Hound seems to have sort of surrendered to that mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to call back to something you said earlier, Arya and Sansa haven't seen any White Walkers, right?
I'm trying to remember now too, because they would have had to drag that White Walker through Winterfell to get to the south to go to that meeting.
Oh, they flew it though, didn't they?
I don't remember, man. Or they went on a ship. That's what I was trying to remember. I was like, I feel like some of them saw that box. Like they brought the White Walker into the hall at Winter. There's something in my mind. Maybe I'm just making this up. Like I feel I'm going to have to go back and watch, but I feel like some of them have indeed seen the White Walkers, like of the Northerners who didn't go to the actual North.
Even if that happened, I was about to say that was before Arya got there, but that too, I'm not sure of. Yeah. So we also get a little Gendry Arya moment.
Oh, and they need to smooch.
I have not. I mean, like the Brienne Tormund thing may not happen, but now, now I just am shipping.
Yeah, that's Arya. For sure happening because he long bottomed pretty hard. Like that, he was like a weird, awkward kid when we first saw him, and now you're like, oh, hello, hi, and she too.
Long bottomed.
Hold on, what? Wow. Please explain.
Oh, may I, Emily?
Yes, please.
So Neville Longbottom was cast as this dopey little kid who, you know, was sort of the weird little friend. And as he aged, he got hotter and hotter and more attractive and more, and then the character got more heroic and more sort of, confident and everything. So Gendry is sort of a little bit like that. And he had his sort of awkward Smithy phase, and now he's Gendry, sexy Gendry, you know.
Smith to the resistance.
That's right.
It's got to be a pretty large audience that would actually understand that.
But, people who would listen will be like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. And then Google Matt Lewis like really quickly. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
Matt Lewis is gonna be James Bond one day. Mark my word.
I hope so. He's great. hey, you're my favorite character in Harry Potter.
That totally distracted me. So this is the moment that you spoke of earlier, where Sansa and Jon, they have another sort of argument where you felt like Jon was sort of making his point, like Sansa kind of understood his point, like it doesn't matter after this. It did feel a little bit like a replay of that argument before the Battle of the Bastards. And
you're right.
I did catch myself thinking, like, has she worked something behind the scenes? I don't know, but I don't know. In general, I'm sort of liking what we've come up with tonight. Of, you know, she's protective of losing her own control of her own destiny, but also of her people. So, Daenerys then visits Samwell in the Winterfell library, and I mean, I thought it was played really well, but I also thought that Sam's father was a monster.
He was. And I think that he, like you said, they really did play it really well. Of like when they meet and there's some niceness, and Jorah's just like, I love how Jorah's just like lurking in the background and all shy, like this is the guy that saved me. Like, okay. Like, Mom, I don't want to talk to him. I already tried to talk to him. But
that's exactly what it was.
I know, right? He was like all shy. It was really cute. But when she says, she explains to Sam, like, really logically, of like, I gave him an out and he said no. And Sam's face is just, he looks shocked and kind of sad, but he doesn't, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, okay, great. And then as soon as she reveals that Rickon is also dead, that's when Rickon.
Dickon.
Yeah.
Rickon and Dickon. Who are these guys?
Now we've had a great callback to the Jamie.
Yeah.
Rickon.
Rickard? I don't know.
Dickon.
I just call him Luther from my Umbrella Academy. But
oh, that's right. Same guy.
And when it's revealed that he is also dead, that's when Sam kind of, that there was no bad blood between him and the brother. He, as children, Dickon and Sam always got pitted against each other from the dad. And in the books, he was a lot younger also. He was like a younger man. Like he was like a man in the show. But in the books, he's only like 15 or something. He's young. And so I think Sam, the actor whose name I always forget, and I'm really sorry because he's really, really good in the show. But I think as soon as you hear that the brother's dead, his face his lips started to quiver and his eyes started to water, and he played it so well. If you could tell, like, this overwhelming sadness of, like, he's not so sad about the dad, but he is sad to lose his only brother, and it's sad.
Well, it can also be too that his mom's still alive, we would assume, but he is now, his family house has no head of household. Like, his mom's doing it, but there's not like a man or a king or a lord like in charge at this point. It's just sort of his household will just probably fade away or be taken over by whoever, unless he decides to come back home.
Yeah. Emily, I really like that point about losing his brother, because I was focusing, I think, too much on the father thing, and like I almost thought he would feel a relief hearing that news.
And I think he does. Like, he makes that joke, like, well, at least I can go home now.
Yeah, and there's that moment where he's like, well, it hasn't been in House Tarly or whatever, and she's like, not Randall Tarly.
Yeah, I know. Like,
and then he says it, and then he was like, well, at least I'll go home and my brother will be there. And I really thought he was going to go, not Dick on Tarly.
Because you'll
never believe this zany coincidence.
Can I ask a question though? So, are we setting is the thread being laid, or the track being laid, for the question of, is Daenerys as bad as her father? Meaning, towards the end, as he got crazier and crazier, he was just burning everybody. he'd bring people down and burn them. I mean, Ned Stark's own father, and I think, was it his brother as well?
Yeah, his brother. It's a really horrifying thing where he lit the dad's arm, like he lit the dad in the arm. Oh, maybe it was the brother. He lit one of them on fire inside their armor to cook in their armor, and then had the other one attached to like a neck chain. And so every time that they tried to go to them to save them, they were choking themselves to death and had to watch them die, and then died themselves.
So this idea then, and granted, we saw what went down. We know Tyrion saw it, and he wasn't comfortable with the fact that she just burned the Tarleys. But this idea of remember that episode had sort of an ominous thing going on where it's like, is she going to turn out to be bad too? I don't know. And I wonder if they're not calling back to that slowly but surely. Once this White Walker threat is settled, is that the biggest question? Is Daenerys fit to lead? And I think this is setting a lot of that. You're seeing, the people of the North, the Lyanna Mormonts and everybody, they've already made up their mind for more or less. And now you're seeing people like, Jon's best friend going, hey man, she's not as cool as you think she is. Sansa is clearly wondering what's going on. Arya, jury's still out, but all these people now, I'm wondering if when this is all said and done, if there's going to be this clean line between, Jon, you have to choose them, her, or us. Wow. And that's going to be really powerful to see.
Yeah, for sure.
I do think Daenerys comes off looking the worst in all of this because she keeps insisting on that queen shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, of like, she has lived such a life of privilege of like, yeah, she had to run away and whatever, she lived her life, but like, she thinks in her soul of souls that she deserves to be queen, that the throne is hers. And I think they said the word 2 times in this episode of earning it. And I think that's what it's going to end up coming down to. Daenerys thinks, she can justify her actions because she truly believes that she is the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. And I think, unlike her, Jon is the one who has earned people's respect and fought for people's respect. And yeah, she's done a lot of accomplishments too with the Dothraki and whatever else, but she is going to have to learn that not everyone will just bend the knee, that she will have to earn their respect. And at the end of the day, if they all survive, they might not want her to be queen, even if she thinks she should. She has to earn it now. Yeah.
And I mean, I think there has been a lot of earning, but part of that is that she's never, like you said, I mean, that privilege that she's applied to herself of like, I deserve this thing. And I guess that's the problem. I have the most problems with that characterization of her, because especially after she flew her dragons, her children, north of the wall and lost one of them to the army of the dead. It seems like at that point she would have come back, stopped wearing white, put on the black, and been like, fuck the queen stuff. I'm on the side of the living. And just like that, I don't know. It's one of those moments where I don't know. I'm just always watching those things wondering like, well, are they doing this because that's how Martin has it in the books or whatever? But she's definitely a little brat in the books.
She's like, but she's also way younger too. But I think too, it's also kind of a little hip. And I think it's like their love story, Jon and her's love story, is a very interesting one. And I think it is kind of setting up for a lot of drama and internal drama where he's telling Sansa titles don't matter and whatever, but then still calls Dany the queen and insists people respect her like a queen.
Yeah. Well, we do get the Jon Sam moment, as you, Taylor mentioned, like in the crypts, in possibly the worst setting and delivery of that news.
But you know why? Do you know why they did the crypt though? They did the crypt because they needed Ned Stark's statue. They're watching
looming.
Which, by the way, who commissioned the statue of Sean Bean? Because it looked really good. It was
really good.
Right. And so think about that. Like, was Rob, when Rob was alive, was he like, well, we better make a statue of him? It's like, when did that all go down? Because Winterfell wasn't really held by them long enough to allow that. I mean, just small little logistical question I had.
Yeah.
It's not that it matters now. Though.
What's that?
It's in an earlier season, but maybe it's just last season when Sansa and Arya see it. But they make a comment of like, that doesn't look like him.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, he looks like happier in life or whatever.
So maybe Sansa did it when she retook Winterfell. And that's why it didn't look good. It was
maybe
so done. Just Sean Bean grimly holding what looks to be a spoon was what I We just saw the hilt of
It's just ice.
Yeah.
A spoon.
I did love that we got so many payoffs in this episode. I think that was we could not have done with any more tension on some of those things. Like having John learn his parentage had to happen. All those reunions had to happen. Like it just felt good. So then we go to Last Hearth to end on like a really beautiful note.
Oh my god. Well, we should talk about the end, but we should talk about the screaming zombie murder child.
Well, I just have one note. I just wrote gross. Like
well, what I learned was like when Barrick, walks into the darkness without lighting his sword, and then it cuts to Tormund's face. It was in that moment I realized like I could watch several episodes of these two guys just dungeon crawling,
just like a buddy comedy.
White Walkers. Yeah.
So see how fast they scattered though. Like when they heard a sound coming on the corner, all those guys were against the wall. Like
they were like Navy SEAls.
Yeah.
Awesome though. Yeah. Perfectly in position. They knew what wall each was going to.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I also love the callback to the first episode of the hands and that symbol. Like that's how the horse heads were arranged, or were they body parts? I can't remember. Maybe it's just body.
They were body parts and the horse parts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the horse parts were on the Fist of the First Men.
Yes, correct.
And the body parts are in the first episode. Wow.
And this was all legs and arms. And besides the fact that I had my hand, I sucked in a breath and had my hand running out the whole time that poor child was screaming and they just stood there watching him burn to utter death. I noticed that it looks very distinctly like the Targaryen swirl.
Totally does. You're right.
But wasn't it the sigil of that house? Like, because they made a note about that when they came in with their flags.
No, the suns are pointier. They're pointier. Yeah, and that's the car scarf also. Okay. And it's pointier. But I was looking at it, and then because the kid is on fire, I was like, oh shit. Like they know that it was like a message to her almost. Of like, we're coming for you.
Yeah, because they do use the word message, right? Like one of them says this is a message. They
love their like weirdo like crop circle body part messages that they send. I don't know, like who does that? Like which of the White Walkers is like the artist who like arranges everything? I want that job.
Considering one of them is like an Olympian it's like they probably have like several talented second in commands that come in.
Yeah, it's true.
Henrietta, come in here and do the art. Hang the kid right in the middle though. I want to send a message. Okay, I'll leave you through it. We'll be back.
We also get information there, which is that the Army of the Dead is now between Last Hearth and Winterfell, which I felt like I was setting up episode 2 for sure.
Yeah, of like, oh, fantastic! Now that we're all here, let's like get to some dying. Let's get to killing off some favorite characters real early.
I know, and they make a comment too about like, and we're on foot or whatever, right? So okay. But we do know that they all made it off the wall, so I guess that's nice.
That is nice. At least the one guy that I recognized with the long, stringy hair.
Yeah, Ed. Is that Dolores?
Sure. Ed? Yep, go with it.
He's the new leader of he is the leader of the Night's Watch, right?
Yes, yeah.
John he appointed him or whatever it was. Yeah.
So it also sounded like, not that this is that important a detail in the instructions to Lord Umber early on. It also sounds like I think John or Sansa orders all the Night's Watch pulled back. So like, there's no.
I missed that.
In the castles, or
he had the Meister or whatever send a raven to Castle Black.
Get the hell out of there!
Yeah, like and it's like we're already all dead, guys.
Yeah,
they have a frost fire dragon.
So that was actually not the actual ultimate scene of the episode. We do get Jaime riding into Winterfell and moody Professor Xavier. But I mean, talking about the parallels between the first episode, that is like the last scene of that first episode is Jaime and Bran.
Yeah,
good point.
I just love like before we made a lot of fun of Bran last season because he's just like he's like that. I think I compared him like to your little brother who went to college for like one semester and then comes back like you just don't even know. When you go to college, you'll know. And, like that's him. But I just really like him of like you know, I wouldn't even call him Bran anymore. Like, they keep thinking of him as their brother, keep thinking of him as their whatever, like their friend, but he's not. He's the three-eyed raven now. Yep. And I think it's going to be a really interesting, just like, it's like, okay, guys, we don't have time for all this nonsense. Like, we have to like get things together. They're coming. I think it'll be interesting more for Jaime to see him and talk to him than it will be for Bran, because I'm sure the three-eyed raven remembers that it was Jaime who put him in the chair and remembers everything, but he also remembers everything from all time ever, plus the future. So it's like, I think it means so very little to him. Like his own past is consequential at this point. So I think it's more of like Jaime having to come to terms of like the kind of man he was in the first couple of seasons of pushing kids out of windows and having sex with your sister and stuff, to the man he is now, of a man who abandoned the love of his life, who have watched all of his children die, who have lost friends, a father, you know, all this stuff, to be the best version of himself, to fight for the living, to fight for what's right. I'm really interested to see how he reacts, because Bran will just be monotone. He'll just be like, whatever.
It is interesting, though, that Bran, when he was talking to Sam's like, what are you doing out here? Just waiting. He goes, I'm waiting for an old friend. And is
that who he was talking about?
I think so. I mean, he could have been talking about both of them, you know,
that
but
makes
I think
so much sense.
But he was still in that same damn spot when Jaime rolled in.
Like, doesn't he get cold?
That's just it. Well, it was funny because Sam asked the question. I was like, why is he just sitting out there? He's like, well, are you just sitting out here? He's like,
oh, that's so, that's really good.
And so you layer that on top of what you just said, Emily, where it's like, hey, he knows that this guy can be more, and he may be crucial to the events to come. Yeah. I'm just a little annoyed. I don't know if you guys watch the Next Time bumper, but like, we don't have time for a whole like hearing against Jaime. Like, why are we wasting time with this? Like, and Daenerys like, I always dreamed about what I would do to you. I'm like,
that's the other like privileged thing of Daenerys, of like, they're literally at your gates and you want to talk about the guy that murdered your crazy freaking father 20 years ago. Like, there's other priorities here, everyone.
Now I got to go watch that. That bothers me already. I hope episode 2 is not just the trial.
Yeah.
Whole episode.
I do want to talk about Jaime specifically because I want to talk about all the swords, all the Valyrian steel swords.
Yes.
Ooh. Because now all the Valyrian steel swords are in one place.
That's right.
For the first time. So Jaime has one, Brienne has one, Arya has the dagger, Jon has one, and Sam has one.
Yes.
So now they're all in one place, all ready to slice up some White Walkers, and that makes me so stoked. Like, I've been waiting for this, like, the whole time, all the legends of the Valyrian swords, and now they're finally all together. And that's why I love that some of my favorite people in the whole series are the ones that are holding them. Like, I love it. Like, Brienne and Jaime back together, and Jon and Arya fighting side by side. Like, it's going to be super dope.
Yeah. Oh, so one thing we didn't mention was the weapon that Arya commissions from Gendry. Mm-hmm. And I think now that we've determined that Needle is not Valyrian, I'm wondering if it looked kind of like it was like a secret compartment or something with a little shard on top of it. But
I saw it as a fusion of her dagger and the dragon glass, like a dragon glass sheath for her dragon. Like that's how it was flashed so briefly in her little diagram that I was like, I mean, that's the fact that he's working. I mean, think about what they're trying to show you. They showed Gendry, pouring dragon glass and forging these things. Mm-hmm. We've already seen her, she pulls out her dagger. It's like, oh, she's trying to create some kind of hybrid weapon.
Yeah. I couldn't really tell. I thought it was maybe like a schema sticks or whatever those called, where they can be one or two. So she could either be one-handed weapon or two-handed weapon.
Ooh, I like that.
But I couldn't tell. I'll have to go back and look at it a bit more closely.
It's like a Darth Maul double-bladed lightsaber. There's gonna be like a moment where she's gonna be like, one and now two, and everybody's like, oh, what? What?
Just like Darth Maul would have like her Valyrian dagger on one side and the dragon glass on the other side.
Oh God, can you imagine that?
Oh, really cool.
So we have run super long. Of course we will all season, but really quickly I want to get from you, do you have any predictions for next episode specifically?
Taylor, you go first.
It is not a Miguel Sapochnik episode, but the previews show at least some semblance of a battle, or maybe it's everything right up until the go sign. This weird trial of Jaime has me a little worried. my hope is that all that's done in the first 15 minutes. And then we get down to business. We see Jaime and Brienne, we see all these relationships and these sort of reunions that we've wanted to see as relates to Jaime. Maybe Bronn makes it up there, by next time, probably. Given
Since we have like teleportation in Westeros now,
he just jumps on a crow. They carry him up there. They go so fast. Anyway, so I'm a little worried because it'll be episode 2. There's a lot to cover. It's not a Sapochnik episode. Maybe that's 3, as I've sort of predicted, and that's the big battle. I think either way, the White Walker threat is going to be encapsulated to these next 2 episodes.
Do you think the Golden Company does anything in the next episode, or was that just planted there and we'll see him again in episode 4?
Ooh, good question.
Emily, you got any thoughts?
I had this thought last season because Dario Naharis, another of Daenerys' ex-lovers, he formerly was of the Golden Company when we first met him, and then after he and Jorah went parted ways, I think he mentioned that he was just going to go back to the Golden Company, and so I kind of hope that having them being introduced would be another like kind of sneaky way of like somehow Dario would show up again. Like, it's not very important in the whole books or in the whole series, but it would be kind of interesting of like at this big battle, all of a sudden half of the Golden Company turn tail and go fight for Daenerys because Dario's like there, like waving, like, hello, I love you. Like,
wow.
That would be dope. That would be like,
or he's just a company man at the end of the day and she's got to kill him.
Ooh, that would be sad too. I just don't think their relationship like meant too much like to her, but still it would be sad because he was very nice.
He was her Lancel.
Exactly. It was like a little bump in the road. Her like rebound.
Harris's Euron.
Yeah, like her rebound of just like, you're pretty and I like you.
She has the I want to bone a pirate checklist too.
Yes, dang it. I don't really know. I mean, I kind of agree. Like, I feel like I hope the Jaime thing is wrapped up really quickly, and it'll kind of give a lot of people kind of a chance to speak, because they mentioned too in the inside the episode, like there's a lot of threads that connect a lot of these people that they haven't realized yet or haven't talked about yet. So I think it'll be a good, option for Brienne to speak and for Bran to speak of like, look, everyone, he just like rolls in there like, look, everyone.
We're going to die in like 24 hours.
He was the one that pushed me out the window, but I don't care. Like, I feel like we're going to get we'll have to deal with it a little bit, but I think we'll get some sense of the battle to come. Like we saw the trebuchets going. Trebuchet. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm just like, for me to like, you mentioned Lost earlier, Taylor, of like the last season of Lost, I had no freaking idea what was happening. Like episode to episode, I'm like, oh wow, they answered like 10 questions, but also I have 87 more because I have no idea what I just watched. And I think that's for me right now, because we're such in blind territory. Like I don't know what's going to happen in these next couple episodes. Like, besides maybe coaching.
I want to stay in the blind territory, but I do not want to keep checking my watch. Meaning, I don't want to be thinking, okay, what's the math now? How many more? What else do they have to do? Are we going to see Elia Sand at all? I mean, like all these things.
Oh yeah,
there are things that aren't important. There are things that are very important, and they're focusing on the very important things. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
I worried before tonight's episode that there would be that feeling of like so many characters getting reintroduced, and I thought they did a really good job of isolating it, between like, these are the important people. So I hope that's like really like the table set for the rest of the season, and those are the only people we're following.
I have one final thing, Todd. I'm gonna side with you now. I don't think Daenerys is pregnant. I think. Oh. Yeah, I don't. I think with Cersei having a baby and her having a baby is a little much, and I feel like she's not at this.
Oh, you don't think? Oh, sorry. Yeah. You don't think Daenerys is pregnant, but you
Correct.
Still think? you still think Cersei is going to be pregnant.
Oh, you clearly, yes. But I think Daenerys, because I was in our sort of preview talk, I was like, oh, she might be pregnant. And I'm like, no, I don't. That's too many things to have to navigate at this juncture.
Well, I do love this idea of the Jaime trial, having it, especially, I'm sorry, I already forgot which one of you mentioned Bran being the the perfect witness of that, of like that Daenerys learning how crazy her father was, and then maybe Jon putting it together of like, oh yeah, and like them seeing that in her personality, and also all happening in the same episode where Jon has to sort of face the fact that he is a Targaryen.
Yeah, like there's gonna have to be some come to Jesus moments, especially for Dany, and I think it's like she only had to rely on her crazy brother for stories about her dad. Yeah. And so I think Bran will play a really big part in showing her you were wrong. And I think it'll humble her. I hope that it'll humble her a little bit of like, God, you guys were right. Like, you should have killed my dad. Like, I don't want to be like him.
Bran is like the best like psychedelic dealer in this whole thing. He's like, come with me. Life is an illusion. Let me show you. It's like,
let me show you your past, your present, your future.
Wow, I've got to rethink my life now. Like, right? We're all just crazy. We're all just specks on this crazy floating rock hurtling through the universe. It's like, let me show you, Sansa. Oh my God. Like, doesn't he have the ability to take her being Daenerys and literally show her the almost like the ghost of Christmas past what happened?
So I hope that happens, so that she gets that her, that during this trial, maybe he gets to show her of why Jaime killed her dad. He was a young man, scared for his life, scared for his kingdom, and she's got to have to like her. While Jon's whole worldview is now shattered, her worldview could be shattered too.
Okay, you just sold me on the Jaime trial. If we get to actually physically see the Kingslayer scene reenacted, I will be on board. I'll be on board for that.
Oh man, what a great note to end on. Actually, we could probably talk all night about this. Emily, in fact, texted me in the middle of the episode or right after you had finished it and said you were very tired, but you really wanted to fangirl, and I definitely feel like we all wanted to fangirl. So we have done. And you can find this episode at panelism.inc. Wait, Taylor, is that right?
Sure.
Or panelism.network. Is one of them up?
Panelism.network, but also just search for Wednesday in Westeros wherever you find podcasts. We're still called Wednesday in Westeros, but we're just on Mondays now until the end of the end of the year.
Out as soon as we can. I'm trying to wrap this up so I can mix it and immediately publish it. But you could definitely look for news on our Instagram, which is panelism.inc as well. And Emily, is there anything you want to plug? You got anything going on you want to chat about?
Just me. For those of you who kind of know me or follow me on Insta, I am a writer for a really awesome mobile game called Choices, and we have a lot of really amazing books coming out in this summer, including one that I've been working on. So if you want to check out Choices, it's in the App Store. And if you just want to check out like pictures of me redoing my bathroom or my dog, or trying to eat healthier, you can follow me on Instagram, and it's that Emily Kelly.
Yes, with 2 E's in that Kelly.
Yeah, K-L-E-Y.
Yes. Thank you both for joining me, Emily. I'm so happy you stayed up late to talk to us tonight.
I missed you guys. I missed Game of Thrones.
Yes, we missed you too. And we will all talk next week after episode number 2. And until then, 7 blessings to you all.
Azor Ahai.
I forgot what I'm supposed to say. Something bitches.